Daniel, thank you so much for your time today. I very much appreciate it. I know how hectic these days and weeks of the press cycle for a new Arch Enemy album can, they can get really crazy. So, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. I can say I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome, awesome. Now, this is, I mean, depending on how we count, the 13th album. Is that then at this point same old for you, or even for someone who's been doing this for such a long time and has seen so many albums come and go, do you still get excited, nervous, scary, what people might think of the album? Like what are the emotions that are going on right now for you?
Well, I mean, in one way, you get so immersed in the work, basically, like just like producing and creating the album. Being a part of the songwriting, going into the studio, and I mean, at that point, you just go by gut feeling, and you just kind of trusting your instinct and feeling that that the material feels good, the songs feel
Yeah.
strong. But up until the point where anyone else hears it, it's pretty much all in your head.
For sure. Now, a lot of, I mean, is there, even at this stage for a band like you guys, is there extra pressure when the previous album, Deceivers, was so well received? Like I personally like the album a lot, but I know a lot of people who said, and saw a lot of comments and reviews going, people that said that, oh, maybe the albums before that, maybe I wasn't the biggest of fans, but this Deceiver album really brought me back to the band. And obviously you had your fan base that never left you, but everybody really liked the previous album. When you're going into then the follow up to that, does that at all, is that a little voice in the back of your head that tells you like whatever we do, it has to live up or do better than Deceivers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question because obviously you don't want to make an album that's not as good as the previous one, but
Of
at the
course,
same
of course.
at the same time, the focus is just it's the same. We had the same focus and drive as we had when we wrote Deceivers, and it's
Hmm.
just like just focusing on making the best songs that we can. It sounds a bit cliche, but that's like the only thing we can do really.
Yeah,
And then the comments will be there anyway, and some will be negative and some will be positive. So
yeah.
as long
For
as we were
sure.
happy with it, that's I think that's a pretty good achievement if everybody can say within the band, that we did what we could.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Now, for me, I mean, obviously, I had a chance to listen to the full album already. I think you guys did surpass Deceivers with this album. We'll get to that in just a second. But, this album for me, when I was listening to it, now I have had a chance that I was the right age when Arch Enemy came out in the 90s. So I've had the privilege, if you will, of being on that journey with the band. It's not that I only discovered the band halfway through or so. This album at times brings me back to like Anthems and Doomsday. um is when you say like you're part of the writing team and all that kind of good stuff, is that a coincidence? I've seen some other people react to some of the singles as well, like, oh, I'm feeling that energy from Anthems, that energy from Doomsday. Is that a coincidence, or is there some level of conscious approach when the band sits down and starts working on this new album, that you have an idea of where you want to go?
Mm. Now, if I would compare to the old material in that process, if I would sit down and think like, okay, that's what we did on a song on Doomsday. Let's not do exactly the same thing again. It's good to
Hmm.
be aware of what we have done in the past, so just to not repeat ourselves too much.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but other than that, I mean, we're not trying to recreate a certain vibe or like revisit a certain vibe that we had around 2004 or whatever.
Right.
We're just pretty much looking forward, going moving into the future basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same people involved, so maybe it's not so much of a coincidence after all. But then,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To think back of those even earlier than those albums that I was just mentioning, I was talking the other day to Christina from Lacuna Coil, who, both Lacuna Coil and Arch Enemy kind of like exploded into the more mainstream of metal, let's call it, at a similar time. And I was asking her about like, the days before that and how much she misses those. Do you have that as well? Are there elements? Because obviously you have now resources available, and there's an institution now that probably has more resources and time and what have you and support than the band in the very early days. But are there elements that you miss of those mid 90s days when not everybody in the world already knew who you were? How do you look back on those early days?
Oh, sure. I mean, I miss certain aspects of being in a band and just releasing a first album. Just putting some
Hmm.
music together, being a part of that process, and then not knowing at all what the reactions, if there are going to be any reactions, even if there will be any reactions. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say. And yeah, I remember that from around the time of the first album with Arch Enemy, and also with my other band, Eucharist. Just putting out an album, like you just throwing it out there and hoping that somebody would pay attention to it. So
yeah,
that's a kind of a liberating thing, though, because there's no pressure at all. That there's nobody's expecting you to deliver an album as good as the previous album because that's the first one. And
right.
yeah, I can miss that a little bit, but at the same time, I'm extremely grateful for where we are right now, and it's been
Hmm.
a long ride. It's been a long ride for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you guys have become a machine at this point, and that machine doesn't stop, right? Like there's always a new album coming, and if not, you're in the middle of crazy tours. There's now waterfall releases with singles where we've seen 4 singles already for this album. Like there's always something happening. So in that world, like how do you and other people in the band like how do you safeguard your own like mental health? Like how do you make sure that you don't burn out? Because this is the machine has to keep rolling.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I said, it's been a long ride, and it was very slow for quite a number of years, and then we got to a point where we were able to tour more and more, and I think everybody kind of like grew into that mentality that this is going to
Hmm.
be a band that's going to be touring a lot. We're going to continue the cycle of releasing albums and going back on the road, and
Yeah.
I think that's like the normal for us. I'd say that if for some reason we end up having a longer break where there's like no really any set plan for the next 4 or 5 months or something like that, I think that's even more. I think that's even more worrying to
Yeah, yeah,
most
yeah.
members of the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this crazy schedule, we talked a little bit about the old days, and you've got some really big milestones. Like this year is 30 years of the band, really. Now you're obviously celebrating with a new album, but do milestones like that for you matter on a personal level? Like, are you when you do have two moments that you're not either playing a live show or recording, and you're not busy with press, you have a few moments. Do you take a step back and do you reflect? Do you look back a lot? Do you celebrate, a milestone like 30 years of the band? Is that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think reflection is very important every now and then to look back. But I mean, the focus is definitely on the future still, which is kind of, I think we're fortunate to be in the position where we can say that we're
Yeah,
still looking forward to the future. And the band is actually still gaining and growing. So having said that, though, like 30 years, yeah, it's a very long time, and it's kind of hard to come to grips with that. But
for, s- for sure. For sure.
I'm
Yeah.
def I definitely have a certain pride in that we've been able to keep the band together and for this long, and
Yeah.
that's I mean that's any success that we have is because of the fact that we did that. We kept working and we kept the band together for all these years. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Um, there's also just a lot of fun stuff going on this new album. right? You guys are trying some different things. We get some curveballs. That, I don't want to spoil too much to people that haven't had a chance at this point to listen to the full album. But I mean, I think you guys are trying some different things on this album, where we're getting different sides of people in the band that we haven't heard before within Arch Enemy. Having gone through this and allowing yourself to be a little bit more maybe adventurous than in the past, if you agree with me, does that also given that you're still looking ahead, does that give you and the band more confidence to do more of that going forward? Like, should we expect to see even more eclectic or varied albums of this band going forward?
That's a good question. But first of all, I think you're onto something when you say that it feels a little bit more adventurous on this album, because I, I remember we were talking about this in the early stages of songwriting, and we just said that let's allow ourselves the freedom to feel a little bit more, adventurous in the song
Yeah.
structures and in the actual creation of the songs as well. So that was pretty cool, and that changed the plot a little bit, and it
Yeah.
took a bit of pressure off.
I hope that the reaction of the fans will be such that you feel the confidence or emboldened, if you will, to try more of that even going forward. Like now that the band has given itself that more freedom, if you will, to be more adventurous, as you said, do you expect that we'll see more of that going forward? Was this like an album that you had to make to feel a little bit more liberated?
Sure, I think that's a good way to look at it. It's like you said, it's album 13 or 12, if depending on how you count. But at this stage and at this point, it's surely good to allow some new influences to come in, or not even
Yeah.
influences, just like a different way of looking at the
Yeah.
songs that we write. So
Exactly.
absolutely, but I don't think there's a chance that we're going to change styles completely. But introduce a bit of a
Right. Right.
bit,
Right.
bit more adventurous spirits.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're not gonna hear you play a country album all of a sudden. That's for sure. But awesome. Awesome. Now, was this a hard album to pick singles for, given that it's so much more varied? Because for me personally, like, and I thought it was funny as I was listening to the album, I was kind of keeping track of, okay, what is my favorite song on this album? And first it was like, oh, Illuminate the Path, I thought really was stood out. And then, oh, A Million Suns is also so cool. And then Don't Look Down all of a sudden is great as well. But the fun fact is that none of these songs are singles that you've released already, which is a great sign because it shows that there's a lot of different songs that could have been singles on this album. Was this tough to narrow that down? Was the band very involved with that?
Yeah, the band was involved with that, and it is very tough because it's a lot of personal preferences, you know. But I think most of us agree that the first single should be "Dream Stealer." When we
Right.
released it, it wasn't announced as a part of the album yet, but now it's out there. So that's one thing that we all agreed on, and we got all the band members together in Europe, and we filmed a bunch of videos, and they've been edited and they're in the making still. So there's still, I don't want to say too much, but there might be another one coming out pretty soon as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for one of the songs that I already mentioned because I think that they're all really cool. Um, so, what does that then, mean for these upcoming shows that you've announced? You're obviously going to come to North America again. Cool headlining package. You'll be in Toronto as part of that. So we can't wait to have you over. But you are now a quote unquote legacy band with 12 or 13 albums, with every fan a long wish list of songs they want to see. You're celebrating 30 years as a band, but then on top of that, obviously, you've got this new album where there's already 4 singles out now. Maybe there'll be more by the time you play here, and then on top of that, there's other cool songs on this album as well. So that's got to be a fun exercise for you to make a set list that can, please everybody. What should we expect from this show?
Uh, yeah, well, you can expect a mix of old and new. Obviously, that's we're not going to be focusing too heavily on Blood Dynasty. Like we won't play 8 new songs, for example. But there's going to be the Blood Dynasty material is going to be well represented, and hopefully we'll be able to cover the past as well. But we're limited because at this point there's a lot of songs to choose from, and
Yeah.
there's only so much time to play these shows, so there's a limit. But we have been touring a bit already. We played a tour, a co-headlining tour with In Flames and the Soilwork as special guests in Europe late last year, and we were able to. We played Dream Stealer as part of our set, and we also started playing Liars and Thieves before the actual song was released. And that was a cool experience, just like to play a song that nobody's ever heard before, and see what kind of reaction is this going to get.
Yeah. And what was the reaction?
I'd say it was pretty good, actually. It's Liars and Thieves is a song that kind of, it's not that hard to get into, I think. You hear it for the first time, you can kind of you can kind of feel where the energy is going in that song. So
Yeah. Okay. Now, these tours, I mean, I don't know if there's on this tour particular any new spots that you'll get to that you haven't been before, but after all this time, after all these albums, after these decades of playing with this band, what's on your personal bucket list or wish list still to achieve with this band?
I mean, there's still some places around the globe where we haven't played. That would be cool, like to visit a place like India, or I don't know where we can play. That's also a question.
Right.
we won't be able to do a 6-week tour in Africa. I'm not sure, but anyway, like just coming back to places like Toronto and Canada in general, America as well. It's always great, It's always cool it's equally as cool to reconnect with fans as it is to go to a brand new place somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's the show that matters when we're out playing. So Canada has always been really high up on the list. So we always get a good reaction there somehow.
Well, somehow it's very easy to explain. You just play a good set and good music, and we'll always be happy for you guys to come. Daniel, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I cannot wait for you guys to come back to Toronto and share the new music live with us and let all the Canadian metalheads go crazy. I hope the cycle is not too brutal for you from the PR perspective, and that you can also just enjoy this new album release. And I wish you and the entire band all the best on what was going to be another extremely busy year for you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the interview. Hopefully see you in Toronto.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you. You too.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.